The recent tragedy at Lakewood Church, Joel Osteen's church in Houston, Texas, highlights the importance of everyone understanding a few critical statistics related to active shooters. Now, there's a lot of talk out there about mass shooters and gun control and active shooters and protocols and run, hide, fight, and I want to offer some very specific, detailed, hard facts that should work to keep you and your family safe in what is coming up to become the high season for active shooters. Yes, you heard me say that correctly. There is, in fact, a high season for active shooters. In fact, FBI has been tracking performance and tendencies of active shooters since as far back as 2018. And I want to share with you a number of FBI's findings related to active shooter behavior, active shooter averages, active shooter statistics, because you need to understand the mind of an active shooter if you're going to be able to protect yourself and your family and your loved ones from the threat itself. Now, before I get into these statistics, I want to take just a minute to thank our sponsor for today. Aura is a cybersecurity company that serves the everyday person. It is literally a cybersecurity company that lives on your cell phone. They live on your laptop. And they are a service that I have been using along with my wife for the better part of a year now. Aura offers multiple different types of cybersecurity services on your phone. One of my favorite is actually dark web monitoring. So Aura has built-in algorithms that will actually scour the dark web to protect your personally identifiable information, or what's known as PII. Your address, your phone number, your credit card numbers, your social security number, everything that's in Aura's protected vault of information is information that they scour the dark web to make sure stays safe and not something that's ultimately put up for sale on some dark web website. The other thing I really appreciate about Aura is that they offer a $1 million built-in insurance policy for your own identity theft. Not only will they scour the dark web and protect your identity that way, but they will also insure against identity theft built in with the actual cost of the service. If this sounds like a good fit for you, like I know it's been a good fit for me and my family, take advantage of a 2-week complimentary trial offer from Aura. Again, aura.com/everydayspy, or just click in the description below to get your own complimentary 2-week trial. Keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, keep your identity safe. Now let's get back to the message. All right, so let's dig into these statistics. Now, first and foremost, it's important to understand that there are different categories of shooters and different categories of gun violence or shooting violence. Today, I want to talk only about what the FBI categorizes as active shooters. And if you look in the description below, I've actually got a number of links to recent reports by the FBI where they document exactly the statistics that I'm sharing with you now. So if you jump into the description and you open a separate tab, you'll be able to go right through the raw source document, the actual files that FBI creates every year, dated 2021 and 2022. Every May, they come out with the next version. So by May of 2024, we should see the 2023 detailed results also released. But I want to give you a sense of the source documentation that FBI uses so that you can refer back to it and share it with your friends and share it with your loved ones. You can also feel free to just share this video where I summarize all the findings from FBI for you. First, it's important to understand that the vast majority of active shootings actually occur in open spaces. I know that you read about them and hear about them the most when they're at a church or at a place of business or at a school. But more than 50% of active shootings actually happen in public open places, open courtyards, open parks, marinas, etc., etc. So you don't necessarily have to worry about being trapped in an active shooting target zone when you go into, say, your church or your child's school. The bigger thing to be aware of is that most active shooters are actually drawn to open public places. And that's because they have a wider area for targets. They have a wider area for what we call vectors of attack and vectors of escape. That's important because you also need to understand that most active shootings are in fact premeditated. So active shooters know that they are planning to go in and shoot something. They don't wake up in the morning and then decide that they're angry and grab a gun and go. They actually premeditate their plan of attack to the point where many of them actually wear body armor, carry extra weapons, and carry extra ammunition. So that's important because whenever you put yourself into a position where you might be vulnerable to an active shooter, understand that as soon as that shooter presents himself, they are better prepared for that moment than the average civilian. So what that means is you should not try to engage the shooter. You should not try to take down the shooter. You should not try to fight the shooter. What you should do instead is simply Take cover. Make yourself a smaller target, protect your family, and tell them to do the same thing. Fall down to the ground, stand behind a tree, move behind a wall, just take cover. Don't try to run away. Don't try to fight. Don't try to hide. I know that's exactly what run, hide, fight tells you to do. All of that is wrong. All you need to do is take cover and give yourself the space and the time to allow law enforcement to come onto the scene. Because here's another important thing to understand about active shooters. The vast majority of active shooters are actually neutralized by law enforcement. They are either killed by law enforcement or apprehended by law enforcement in a short period of time. So yes, you do absolutely hear stories about the active shooter who kills themselves, or the active shooter who goes on a shooting spree and police aren't on the scene for 20 minutes. You do hear those stories. But just like you hear those stories about shootings in churches and schools, that's the vast minority of shootings. The fewest amount of shootings happen in close quarters. The fewest amount of shootings happen where the shooter is not immediately or nearly immediately neutralized by law enforcement. So what you need to do is take cover to protect yourself and protect your family during the active shooting minutes or seconds. Now, the shooting at Lakewood Church in Houston, Joel Osteen's megachurch, highlights an important element about why it's important to take cover during these active shooting encounters. And that is because not only do you have to worry about the active shooter who is shooting into the crowd, but you also have to worry about any security or plainclothes law enforcement who might be firing back at the shooter themselves. And that's exactly what happened in Houston. There were 3 victims at the active shooting in Joel Osteen's megachurch in Lakewood. The first was, of course, Moreno, the active shooter, who was neutralized by 2 plainclothes law enforcement officers shooting at her. The second victim was actually Moreno's 7-year-old child, who was shot in the head, most likely shot in the head by one of those plainclothes officers who were off duty. Now, the press hasn't come out and said that openly, but when you read what is being said in the press reports, you can very clearly see that they are currently going through the process of determining what they can and cannot legally say about the head wound to the child, the innocent child, who Moreno was carrying along with her. So the wound to the child did not come from the active shooter. It actually came from one of the trained law enforcement officers who were on site trying to neutralize Moreno. And if you think about it, a 7-year-old stands about as high as the center of mass of a 35, 38-year-old woman like Moreno. So you can see how the child's head would be in about the same target area as the chest and abdomen of the target Moreno, the active shooter herself. The third victim was a 51-year-old man who took a bullet to his hip while he was there at the church. Again, it's unclear whether he was hit by one of Moreno's bullets or one of the incoming bullets from law enforcement. And because no one is specifying who shot that victim, it again is potential evidence pointing towards the fact that he may have actually been shot by the security forces in their effort to try to neutralize Moreno. There's another thing that's really important to understand about statistics here. In the active shooting that happened in Houston, Moreno shot what is estimated to be about 30 rounds through an automatic rifle. From those 30 rounds, there's really only one potential victim who may have been hit by the active shooter themselves. 2 of the people that were hit that day were actually shot by law enforcement in an effort to neutralize the shooter themselves. And that, of course, is Moreno and her 7-year-old child. The reason I say that is because during an active shooting, you don't have to worry about what is known as just one vector of fire. You actually have to consider 2 vectors of fire. The vector of fire from the mass shooter or from the active shooter, but you also have to worry about the vector of fire that's coming back from law enforcement or whoever's trying to neutralize that active shooter. All the more reason why the best strategy for you and your family, if you ever find yourself in an active shooting scenario, is to simply take cover. Drop to the ground, find your way under a table, put yourself behind a concrete pillar, put yourself somewhere where the shooter doesn't realize that you are there. That protects you from both the shooter and incoming fire from whatever parties are trying to neutralize the shooter. So getting back to some of these statistics, active shootings happen primarily between 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. And the shooting in Houston is evidence of that as well, which happened to occur approximately 2 p.m. local time. You will see the vast majority of active shootings happen throughout the year between 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. That doesn't mean that they don't also happen in the morning and they don't also happen at night, but it does mean that most active shooters who are premeditating violence violence choose to schedule and plan their premeditated violence during core business hours, core daylight hours. Also important to understand is that the vast majority of these active shootings happen on weekends, Saturday and Sunday, and also on Wednesdays. We're talking about multiple years of data here that show that the vast majority of shootings happen on Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday. And again, this isn't something that we understand yet. We don't know why active shooters gravitate towards these days. There are certain reasons that rationally make sense because public places would be more actively used on Saturdays and Sundays. The question is, why is Wednesday the most popular weekday? We don't know the answer to that. We only know that that's what the data shows. Also interesting is that the peak months for active shooting actually happens in March, April, and May. So the February shooting that we just experienced in Houston is an outlier according to averages. But what's very important and what's really critical for you to understand is that we are now coming into the highest, most popular months for active shooters in public places on Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays between 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. That starts in March. March, April, and May for multiple years now, as recorded by the FBI, are the most popular months for active shootings. Again, it makes sense because you've got various holidays. People are coming out of the winter. As innocent people come out of the winter, they want to get out and enjoy spring. Malicious people come out of winter. They are coming out after 3 or 4 months of planning time, where now they have the most dangerous months, days, times, and the most dangerous places. But what I need you to understand right now, and what you can do to keep yourself safe and share with your family and your friends, is that active shootings are going to become much more common and much more popular between the months March, April, and May on Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays from 12 o'clock to 6 p.m. in public places first and foremost. If you have any doubts or if you want any additional detail, feel free to click in the link in the description below, where I have the 2021 stats and the 2022 stats as published by FBI, and keep your eyes open for the 2023 stats that will be coming out soon. One last moment just to say thank you to our sponsor who sponsored today's message for you. If you want to keep yourself as safe digitally as you are going to be able to keep yourself safe physically after today's message, please make sure to visit our sponsor and show them a little love, sign up for their service, and see how effective Aura can be.
So fresh on me. Freedom.